Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. I know the sound is doing good tonight. I didn't check anything in the last second just before I was going to hit that live button. I went, oh my goodness, I didn't double check everything. I spent a couple of hours this afternoon trying to figure out what I did wrong. And again, like I was saying yesterday, push a few of those buttons and hope nothing blows up, and it all worked out for me. Let me just turn this over a little bit so I have a little bit of space here. It's going to take me a few days, you guys, to get used to the camera being there rather than the camera being here. And, I hope it just doesn't interfere. I know it is just in the practice that we get better at things. And, it took me a while to learn, even to go live, even to start my podcast, even to come in front of the camera. It took me so long, right? Maybe I'm a slow learner, and that's okay. I'm doing this at my pace, but I'm consistently moving. I'm always moving. And in moving and practicing and learning and messing up, eventually I get things right, which kind of leads me into the topic today. Let's start over again. Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes. Get those notifications out. Let people know that I've gone live. In the meantime, if you never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Tonight, I picked the word just before I came live rather than grabbing my cards there. Because when I was in the shower, I'm going, oh, what are we going to talk tonight? And I said, oh, well, we'll let the words decide what we're going to talk about. And the first thing that came into my mind was this word change. And I thought, what a great word, because, I try to stay connected with what's going on in the world, right? But doing it in a way where I'm not compulsing in the news. I heard Ozzy Osbourne died today. I hope that wasn't I hope it actually was a fallacy, but it was something that came across my path. And, it's really wonderful that these people that have brought us so much joy, and I have to say, I was never really a big Ozzy Osbourne fan, even though I was in that realm of music, a lot of metal going on in my young adulthood. But for me personally, I've never ever been a true music person. Every once in a while, I can jump into a chorus, but for the most part, no, music was never my thing. Mother Nature was my thing, solitude, quiet, and maybe it started off, in a way of getting away from what was uncomfortable. But I found that it really soothed my system. But lots of people find music soothes their system. I have a brother in law. He loves to sing. It's actually embarrassing sometimes, because he'll just break out in tune and sing love songs to us and stuff. And it's so beautiful. I just love hearing, well, especially men sing. I just love singing it all. The only thing is, like I said, somebody who's not, that touchy feely kind of person, something that I picked up off of my mother, once I am in the relationship, once that trust is built up, we fall into it naturally because we let go, because we feel safe, we feel contained, we feel comfortable, right? We feel like somebody cares. And when my brother-in-law would break out to tunes, oh my goodness, my face would go red, and he'd be like looking you in the eyes and just singing as if the song was just for you. But he loved to sing. I think he bought a guitar and even tried to learn to play the guitar. But when we talk about change, and I don't mean to just pop into the story about my brother-in-law. I don't think he would be minding too much if I was talking about him a little bit in this reference to change, because in the past 20 years, he has gone through a lot of change himself. I would have to say, probably in the last 10 years, some really, really crazy change where he had to make some choices for himself, for his family, for his own sanity. And he did that. He went through some crazy, crazy changes. I haven't heard him sing. I'm sure he sings a lot still. He likes to ride his bike with his headphones. I don't think it's a very safe thing to do when you're riding a bike, but I'm not going to lecture him on that. But what I would want to mention is how he came out of some of these sadnesses in his life, and it is in staying busy. And you can't just stay busy in stuff, right? You're not staying busy at work. You're not staying busy washing the dishes and cleaning the house and scurrying around like a madwoman cleaning up after the kids and the husband. You have to stay busy in what you love. And it could have been a lesson that I could have easily missed out on. It was only in the fact that I was by myself and I was looking for answers and I was in the midst of some hairy, scary changes in my own life that I found that peacefulness and that calmness in my system in doing some of my passions. And some of these passions came along with this little bit of movement I came along. I mean, like my crystals and my rocks. Oh, you can't really see them here, but I got lots of rocks and crystals. I got tables of rocks and crystals here. That's fairly new for me. Maybe a half a dozen years, maybe 10 years ever since I started going into uh, my road trips. The road trips have always been a part of my life. I'm just going to say right now that was just my air conditioner saying, "Empty my canister, it's full of water," but that's okay for now. I'm heading out for a walk right after my live show. Like I said, today I was working to make sure that my live was set up, that my podcast was ready to go. But change has always been consistent in my life. But I would say in the past half a dozen years or so, oh my goodness, have I been in the mix of it in my own personal life, in my own personal circumstances, and in some of those lessons that I got to help me better understand what I got right and what I got wrong. And when I get these understandings and these lessons and these experiences, and staying busy in my new passions of crystals or dragons, or history's also been a part of my life, right? Always, I don't know why. I was pretty much born into it. I wanted to be an archaeologist by the time I hit the first grade. I had already decided I was going to be an archaeologist. I loved dinosaurs. By the time I hit high school, I was all about Egypt. I would have maps of Egypt on my wall, and I would have pins in the different places I would want to go visit. You know, change is a good thing. A lot of people, they look at the wrenches, like the wrenches that got thrown into my life yesterday, and setting up a new camera, setting up a new kind of spot in my apartment that I could feel comfortable, because in this widescreen, because that was one of the things about the camera that I wanted. I just wanted better resolution in my camera, but in that better resolution, I really did get a full view of my entire apartment, and I did not want, right? The kitchen's not part of my story, right? I wash the dishes, I eat my dinner. That's my kitchen. This is my joy. These are things that mean a lot to me, and these are things that I picked out for myself, right? Even not understanding why I was picking up on some of these collectibles, some of these, right? My beautiful Mother Nature pictures, I've always, like I said, loved Mother Nature, but I did lose it for a while, when I married my husband and he was in the military and he says, I'm not going camping. My job entails me to dig a hole and live in the ground for 2 months. I don't want to come home and, right, go off camping and do that in my own free time. He had his own passions, right? And but it was my passion, and being the empath I was, and without the lessons and making sure that I was happy, that that joy and that light that was in my life that my husband was so attracted to, that slowly dissipated because I became something that he wanted, something that he needed. It's another phase of change. And we look at these changes that in the end it truly messed me up. I managed to get through my marriage, and I'm saying get through my marriage because I didn't serve my marriage very well. I spent it for the most part as a gambling addict, and I ended up often lying, right? Where's the money I was making at work? I was a server. I was making lots of money in tips, and I was covering my butt. And, we started drifting in that way, started spending more time with his friends. And, I could feel and I knew how much he loved me. It's why that whole relationship moved as fast as it did, right? But then again, I could be wrong in that because he's the one that chased me down. I would never have done anything like that in the state and in the point in the life that I was, right? But he chased me down, and I fell for it. Line and hooker. It served me well. But again, I was uncomfortable, and being not a touchy feely person, right? I really had to make sure, he told me he loved me first. He chased me down, right? The flowers. I'd never received flowers and gifts and anniversary and beautiful Valentine. I never received anything like that in my entire life. He just swooped me up, and I could not help but be devoured by that. It was it was beautiful, and I woke up in that. Hello, Eugene. Nice to see you. How do you like the new setup, Eugene? Let me know in the comments there what you think of it. I got a new camera. Let me know how the sound is, because that was my big concern yesterday, was in the sound. I took like 6 takes, maybe four or five takes I took before I finally managed at like 1:30 in the morning to finish my podcast, right? And then I said, "Oh, you did so good, Cindy, right? You can go in, you can watch your live now before you go to bed. My eyes are dozing off." But I'm not taking the lesson for myself, so I went to bed and I woke up this morning and I watched my live again. And you know what? I was proud of myself. Not that I had done a fantastic job in the podcast, but because I did what I said I was going to do, that I didn't let myself down. And if anybody were to come in, yes, I have on sandals tonight. I'm going for a walk tonight, so I want to make sure that I have my good walking shoes. My good walking shoes. I am a big Keen fan. That's a brand of shoes. My winter boots, my rain boots, my creek boots, or creek sandals, the ones that you can walk into the creeks, and then I have my walking sandals. And yeah, I don't know if they do runners, but if they do runners, my next pair just might be a Keen pair of runners. So we're talking about change tonight. Thank you for letting me know, Eugene. I sure wish Melvin would come in. this is going to be a change. I feel the change as of late. One of my regular followers who have been with me for a few years now, and I've become attached to him because not only did he hang out with me on my Sunday night Chatters Live, but he was coming in here, right, for What's My Good Cheer and supporting me. Grateful I have Eugene, right? But I worry about my Melvin because Melvin was pretty religious about coming in and spending time with me, and I don't have an address. I don't have I don't have an email, right? No messenger, no nothing. I have no idea how I can check on him except just every once in a while throw his name out there and say, Melvin, message me, let me know everything is okay. Go into the comments and say hi if you pop into my podcast after it's over, just to ease me up. I thought about you a couple of times today while I was working on setting up my new setup, and then tonight just before I went live, and I says, oh, Eugene will be in tonight, he'll let me know what's going on. And then I thought of Melvin, and I thought, oh, I hope Melvin comes in, right? Putting out that good mojo, putting out those good vibes that everything is okay, that maybe he's just got a bunion, or he's on vacation, right? He didn't say anything to me. It's why it makes me a little bit nervous in that. But I love Melvin. I love my subscribers who have been with me for years, right? We have, again, it takes time sometimes to build that trust and to get to know each other, right? That we can let our guards now down, to know that, right, we are safe in the presence of somebody that we can share and we can trust and we can let ourselves go. And I did that with Melvin, and right, it's going to hurt if I don't hear him again. He's going to be one that it'll be a hard one to get over, right? Because you know, these are my family, right? I am somebody who pretty runs solo, even though I might have met a new friend this week, uh, much younger than me. It's nothing like that. But he was a bottle digger, and I was telling him about my bottle digging spot, and he said he was going to come and hang out with me if I didn't mind. And I said, of course not, right? Because there are actually a lot of homeless camps in the place there I like to go bottle digging. So it would be nice to have some company, right? Just to make sure that I'm safe. They've the canners and the homeless have always been very respectful for me. I've always gotten along, but you know what? They're homeless for a reason, and if they should have that moment where they're gonna flip into the change, right? That something inside them is going to ignite. Maybe I say something wrong. Maybe I look at them funny. Maybe they don't like the way I'm dressed. Maybe they're just having a bad day and they just want to leave it on somebody. And here comes the empath, perfect person, right? But it is in those choices that we make that we can find resolutions, and we can find ways to make ourselves happy. Because, you know, when we're happy, when we're enjoying what we do, we never want to give up, right? It's why I'm still here on YouTube 10 years later. When I first came onto YouTube, I wanted to be a YouTube superstar. I wanted to be a new Logan Paul. I don't even know if Logan Paul is still on YouTube, right? But if he is, I wanted to be huge like he was, right? I wanted to be able to go off and do whatever I want and not have to answer about it, and not to count my pennies to see if I could financially take care of that and buy the 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 gear that I would need for whatever I did. Slowly I built it up, right? Slowly I built a new life for myself. And believe me, it's certainly different from the life that I came out of. And I'm just going to have to go back 6 years because, right, I've been changing ever since. But what I was going to say about change, we all grumble and complain we have problems in our life, right? Problems are not fun, but we can't expect everything to be cotton candy and rainbows. It's not realistic, right? That would never happen. And if you see how the world is playing out in the moment, you can see more than likely the change is just going to get more and more uncomfortable. But as it becomes uncomfortable and we search for something that will help us to become more comfortable, we should be looking at what makes us happy. If you go into that and say, oh, what's going to get me through this bad time, right? Maybe you would end up on a VLT, video lottery terminal. Maybe you would be a gambling addict or a drug addict or an alcoholic or a shopaholic or a sex addict or a porn addict, right? A cleaning addict, right? There are so many things that we move into to help calm our systems. And I know for my very own addictions, it wasn't fun in the moment, right? Maybe, right? You hit a little jackpot and go, woohoo, right? But you put that money right back in and then you walk out that door and you go, oh my goodness, I can't pay the rent. I'm going to have to ask my husband for money to put in the car, right? My marriage failed and the gambling was a big part of it. Not because the actual gambling, because we both made good money, but the time that it took me away from my marriage, took me away from taking care of my husband the way that he was used to, right? Right? I went into that just making sure that he had everything that he needed, that he would never get to that point where he would betray me or let me down. And I did that. I did that myself in trying to cope with that pretending to be somebody that I could be that. Definitely, I could be that everything for him, everything that he wanted, right? But a lot of that were not my favorite things. I loved making him happy, but a lot of those things that I did in trying to make him happy, it didn't work. It didn't work for him. It didn't work for me. Slowly, that positive that I spent those couple of years in grooming, and I wasn't woke to any of those ideas. I was just on a get your life back together kind of plan. And I got my life back together. And when I did, it was like a light switch and I turned on and I attracted all kinds. Oh my goodness. And I was very uncomfortable with that because, right? Nobody had been interested in me up to that point, right? And there was my husband with engagement rings 6 months after we met and flowers constantly and valentines and anniversaries and holidays and hugs and kisses and right, the poor man, he couldn't even remember garbage day 4. Like I said, I was everything that he dreamed of for himself, but I was not everything that I had dreamed for myself. And in that, I slowly slipped again, and that light dissipated, and my husband noticed. And the loving, dedicated, loyal man that he was, he stuck around probably for a year longer than he should have, maybe a couple of years longer than he should have, right? Or he could have, right? He could have upped and said, oh, I can't take this anymore at any time. And not like my husband was perfect, right? But he had it made. And when he didn't have it made anymore, because I was away from the marriage, right? And when I was away from the marriage, I wasn't even around him. I was doing my own thing and he was doing his own thing. And I lost that marriage. I lost it. And I did everything I could to put it back together. But the thing is, I took it as a betrayal because I didn't get it. I didn't understand light and darkness and positive energy and negative. I didn't understand any of that. And I went down a deep, dark hole that took me, in all honesty, a few years before I stopped thinking of my husband every single day. Slowly after that, things dissipated a little bit, and that love for him didn't dissipate. But the thing is, the acceptance of what had happened had instilled itself. And when it had instilled itself in me, again, I changed. I reverted. I never gave up any of my addictions. That took a few more years after that. And things slowly got lighter and lighter with every day. I thought less of my husband, and I started coming back alive, and I never thought that that would happen for me. I really thought that that was it. I just had to accept that I was going to be alone for the rest of my life. That didn't happen, not once, right? Well, as of late, but right, I had no problems because, again, I went back into that people pleasing, being somebody for somebody else, being everything, getting to know what their wants and needs were, and making sure that that was all being divvied out to them, right? So that they wouldn't betray me, they wouldn't leave me. And of course, right, doing that and not. Right, because that's busy work. That's right. That took a lot of work. That took a lot of work here. That took a lot of work here. And I just could not do it because all it was doing was bringing me down, 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 down into the point where, well, you guys know, for anybody who's been with me for any length of time, I almost ended up homeless over COVID. Can you believe that we're on 5 years, going on 6 years since that happened? That was an experience, wasn't that? And that brought change to everybody, right? To everybody. And we didn't have any choice in that. If we wanted to stay connected to our loved ones, right? Grandparents had to learn to FaceTime so they could spend time with their kids and spend time with their grandchildren. And like me, some of them were able to be pulled into the digital age. I'm so grateful that it happened to me. I'm so grateful. And I'm serious. When I say I'm so grateful, I really, truly, I am so grateful that that happened for me, that those choices that I made in starting my YouTube channel, right? I was an urban explorer. I'm still an urban explorer. Haven't urban explored anything in a couple of years, but I am an urban explorer. But I do other things when I can't get on the road and do what I love, when I can't go off and go camping and spend time out in Mother Nature. I have to make sure that I'm staying busy, but being busy in other things that I love and other things that make me feel good about myself, right? And so I found other passions, and right, I'm not letting go this time. I understand perfectly how I got it wrong, right? We all grumble and complain about those wrenches that come into our lives, those devastating, heartbreaking experiences that just shut us down. But in truth, these are, I hate to agree with everybody who says it, but it's true, right? These experiences are necessary because it's our choices and whether or not we want to resolve these pits that we've dug ourselves into. And sometimes we don't have any choice because I would have ended up homeless. And by that time, I was in the experience, right? I kind of understood what was going on. I still had no answers at the time and how to resolve it, but slowly getting those first lessons in forgiveness, right? Understanding that I did this. It was in my choices, and I could have made different choices. And in the moment now, I could say maybe I didn't have much of a choice in that, but I did manage to keep myself here, keep myself being pulled into the digital age and in wanting to keep my brand going in that desperation. This is right. The brand was everything to me at that time. I didn't have anything else, right? I'd given up some of those toxic people in my life. I had taken on some of those understandings in forgiveness, and that word forgiveness hit me like a brick on the side of the head in the moment that it happened. And that happened in a few moments that I spent with my mother before she passed away. And when that happened, I changed instantly. And sometimes change takes time, right? But if you're ready and if the moment is right, quite often change happens instantly. And whether change is good or whether that change is bad, like a traumatic experience that could shoot you into that state of mind that makes it so that all the good that's inside of you, all those other parts of you that want to come to the surface, doesn't want to come to the surface because, right, we're in such a state, just like my husband, right, didn't want to be around me when I was sad and miserable and desperate. Those other parts of me didn't want to either, right? That's not comfortable. And it wasn't comfortable for me, but I didn't have any choice but to work with that, to adapt and conquer, and, right, allow myself to be pulled into the answers. And the way I found those answers was just in paying attention, paying attention to the relationships in my life, paying attention to what people were talking about, and looking for answers in some of those problems I came to realize that I had. I didn't even understand what a limiting belief was, in all honesty. All of this stuff had to come across my path until I recognized what I had gotten wrong, right? And when that happened, right, I didn't shoot up like Logan Paul, but in that process, things got better, right? Got a roof over my head. I furnished my home because I ended up selling everything or having to leave everything behind when I was, right, moving along in my life. And that was a drastic change in my life, too. Super scary, super scary. But I'm saying, right, I learned so much in that process. And I think it would be pretty difficult to put me back in that state. And that's what this is all about. This is, right? This is to heal those understandings that I grew up on, in that people pleasing for others. I'm just going to take a moment. We're going to send some good cheer to the fire truck and the paramedics that they get to their destination, right? They get to their destination and it's a false alarm, right? And I apologize. I just remembered now that I'm supposed to be looking at the camera, but I hope that it's centered proper enough, or I'm centered proper enough that it's not too noticeable. But it's uncomfortable. That's okay, right? Because that's part of change. And as we move forward with my live podcast, right, it's just going to get easier and easier and easier until it's not even a thought anymore. And the difficulties I had in it, right? They're going to be different, different difficulties that I'm not going to give up in trying to resolve, because I didn't give up in trying to resolve the camera issue and the speaker issue. And because I didn't give up, right? It worked out for me. So I stay busy, right? This is the idea. And it's not stay busy in, right, just for the sake of being busy. You have to be busy in what you love to do. My brand, it's passion. It's a lifeline for me. And I would like to think that possibly with those lifelines being tossed out there, right? Maybe I have, maybe I will one day, maybe I never will, right? But for my own well-being, I know that I've made a lot of change in my life, a lot of change that will make sure that I never find myself in that state of desperation, that state of heartbreak, that state of grief that didn't serve me well, and it didn't serve the people around me well. It did serve lessons. I'm going to give it to that. Right? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Right? Good and bad are always happening in our lives. I could probably think of a half a dozen things in this moment that aren't really going so great for me. Right? And in my little bit of lack of allowing myself to stress out about it, right? I keep myself busy and doing what I love, right? Making baby steps in the corrections and in the understandings, and then putting in the action, right? Not just understanding it, but putting in the action, because I recognize one trait of myself that makes it so that I can stay positive. And that is that sense of accomplishment. And when I accomplish, it makes me feel good. It keeps me in the positive. It keeps me, right, in that partnership with myself, right? And if I could get anybody a lesson in that, it is, right, not just to keep yourself busy for the sake of keeping busy, not to people please, right, to resolve uh, a conflict, or just so you're not alone, just so you can make sure that you're never betrayed, right? What's that saying? Let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours. If it never comes back to you, it never was, right? Something like that. You have to let the people that you surround yourself to see the real you, right? Maybe I wouldn't have married my husband if I had seen what a little piggy he was with his clothes and his army gear all thrown all over the house. It was pretty cute, right? I was happy, right? So when you're happy, you want to do naturally for the other person. But I believe that, in my doing for him, in being everything that he wanted and he needed, I didn't serve him well, right? The change came no matter what, right? The marriage fell apart. And just as much as that was a terrifying, scary move for me, that was a terrifying and scary move for him too, because I knew that one thing that he didn't want for himself was to be like his father. And that's the truth. And I know for a fact that he would have beat himself up for doing exactly the same thing that his family or his father did to his family, right? And so, I understand these things now. I don't think it's possible for me to go back into that negative state. Grief is going to hit us, right? Grief is going to hit us, but I'm going to do my darndest to stay busy in things that I love and people that I know care for me, and in the mindset, knowing that if I don't give up, if I just keep going, if I just don't fall back into myself, that everything is going to be okay. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. I'm just going to come in and see what Eugene is yibber yabbering about. Um, oh my goodness. Is that appropriate? No, don't talk about my clothing, Eugene. Oh my goodness. Right? That makes me feel uncomfortable. Yes. That's a boundary. There we go. Oh my goodness, Eugene. I love you to death. I love the compliments that you send me. Don't make me feel uncomfortable in what I do here. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.